Good morning to all of you. My name is Dr. K. Veerankutti. I am the Dean of this college, Lead College of Management, Dhoni, Palakkad. Today, I am going to make a small presentation or a small lecture on the effects of the lower GDP on India's economy. Effects of the lower GDP on India's economy. First of all, what is GDP? Many of you may be knowing. GDP means Gross Domestic Product. Once again I tell you, Gross Domestic Product. What it is? It is a total value of the goods and services produced by a country during a particular period, especially during a quarter or an year. So, GDP is very important. When the GDP is growing, it means it's an indicator that the economy is growing. When the GDP is coming down, that means the economy is slowing down, or a recession or a depression. A recession may sometimes lead to a depression where there is lack of demand. As there is a lack of demand, there will be, so that means low income. When there is a low income, low consumption. So according to J.M. Keynes, you might have heard of Keynes, when the effective demand, what is an effective demand? Effective demand means a willingness and ability to buy a commodity or a good or services. If the effective demand is low, naturally the income will be low, leading to low effective demand. When the effective demand is low, that means the consumption is very low. When the consumption is very low, the producers are producing the product, which means leading to a glut in the market. Overproduction. There will not be any demand, but there is supply. Naturally, the companies will slow down, will reduce their employment, their workers. They will send off. So, the production will be reduced, which will again result to low employment. When the low employment again comes, means low income. So, this is a cyclical nature of the economy. Then what is the impact on the GDP growth in India's economy is the topic of our discussion. As we have seen, economic growth and development depends upon the GDP of a nation. Suppose that China is the world's largest emerging economy in the world, their GDP growth is very high. Now comparatively in India, during the last few years, we have been seen that the GDP growth rate is coming down. From that earlier it was at 2 digits, it has now come to a 1 digit, and during the last quarter in ending September 30, the growth rate of the GDP was only 4.5%, giving a signal to the country that the country is slowly going to a recession. When the country is going to a recession, it means the employment opportunities generated by is also low. Why the GDP is coming down? There are so many reasons for that. So GDP it tracks the health of a nation or a country. GDP means it is economy is considered GDP as the health condition of a patient or the economy. It determines whether the economy is growing or experiencing a recession. That's an indicator. So GDP is the indicator whether the economy is in a good state of health or whether it is going down to a recession. So according to J.M. Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, he was a British-born American economist. In 1930, there was a Great Depression. The world famous Great Depression was called a depression. The recession leads to depression. And in his book 1930 published General Theory, generally known as General Theory. The book's full name is General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. Published in the 1936, has analyzed the causes of the depression. According to him, lack of spending is the lack of effective demand. A demand has when the demand increases, it has a multiplier as well as an accelerator effect. What's a multiplier effect? When there is an investment, a foreign direct investment comes to India or in Kerala, it generates directly employment opportunity to thousands of people, some 5,000 people or 10,000 people direct employment. And the direct employment people, there are the secondary sector. They also getting the employment because these people are depending on the first type of employment. The first persons who are getting the direct employment are depending upon the secondary, tertiary and tertiary. So it creates a multiplier effect in the employment opportunities. So when the economy comes to a recession, this has a reverse multiplier effect. That means when the income is reduced, employment is reduced, consumption is reduced, so income is reduced, investment is reduced, there will be lack of demand, leading to a deflation. It is also called a stagflation. Stagflation. What is meant by one time there is a small little bit inflation, at the same time the economy is not at all growing. This situation is called stagflation. And according to Keynes, once again I will repeat that Keynes, the acceleratory effect is also there. What's the acceleratory? When an investment comes, it accelerates other investment. Other investment is also promoted, encouraged. Suppose a steel industry is coming to Kerala, there are some similar industries which are producing, supplying materials to the company, are also generating employment opportunities, thousands of people. So in his book Capital, the capitalist economy, because we have after the 1990, we have gone for LPG. That's when LPG means liberalization, privatization and globalization. After the 1991, during the Manmohan Singh government, when he was the finance minister, we have adopted a U-turn policy in the economic conditions, the economic policy of the country. Then private investment were given top priority. Earlier we have a socialist pattern of society according to the constitution, and till 1990 we have been following the socialist pattern of the society, where the income distribution shall be equal or almost equal to, and everybody should be given employment opportunities. But the country could not grow even after 70 years or some 60 years of independence. We could not grow as we thought of. So this government have gone as a part of the globalization. We have also gone for this LPG program. As a result, we are also a capitalist. We are also going just like a capitalist economy is going. But the difficulty is that a capitalist economy is always, its growth is cyclical. Cyclical means it has a fluctuation, a boom, a depression, boom, depression. So this is called a cyclical growth of economy. That is what is happening in India also. So now we are in the stage of an economic recession. Now we can see that India's GDP slumped to a shocking of 4.5% in the September quarter 2019. And this has now come in the last quarter of June 2020, it has come negative. So this is the position in India's condition. This seems to be a bad news for India's economy, and India slowing or crippling to a recession in the country. As a result, the income generated by the employment is very low income, and people will not spend for consumption more. People will not consume. When your income is increases, consumption also increases, but less than the income. So always, when the income is higher, we buy TV, we buy refrigerator, we buy washing machine, we buy AC, everything, we buy new things. If you are not buying these things, the items will be glutted in the market. There will be lack of demand. So the persons employed in these companies will not get any employment. So they will lose their income. So when they get income, they will also spend in the market. So consumption will also be reduced. When consumption or low demand means will be a glut, create a glut in the market, thereby producers will not produce as a result. And layoff will be there, industry will be closed. And one industry is closed, it has a reverse multiplier effect. I told you, other depending industries will also be closed, leading to unemployment, which means again low income and low demand. This is called a cyclical growth. And in 2019 slowdown, the Indian economy has triggered by a mix of both internal as well as external factors. What are the causes for this recession in India? What are the reasons for the India's economic recession? According to economists, there are internal factors as well as external factors. There are certain external factors which are items which we cannot control, which is beyond our control. But internal factors are within the limit of the country's administration. So what is such as synchronized global slowdown. One of the reasons for the economic slowdown in India is also the synchronized global slowdown. You might have heard of the trade war between America and China, which has led to the trade war. A trade war means because imposing high tariff on American import by China. America is imposing very high tariff to Chinese products, as a result restricting trade. This is called a trade war. So this has there is a world economic slowdown which is created, and global slowdown, trade war, that's a trade war between, as a result of the US and China, and the untimely implementation of the GST in India, that's the internal causes. The other one is And the pandemic COVID-19 is an external factor which has also led to the slowing down of India's economy, but coupled with some internal factors also contributed for the speedy or the slowdown of the Indian economy, such as you might have heard of that demonetization in 1916 or so, demonetization by the Prime Minister of India. Then as a result, 1,000 currencies and 5,000 currencies were devalued. So not devalued but demonetized, and this has created actually it has crippled the economy, it is said. And the second one is that then untimely implementation of GST, and is another cause for the then. So India has a high national debt. As a result of all these things, our national debt is 68% of the total GDP, while the fiscal deficit is remained at 3.4% of the GDP. The biggest economic problem, challenges faced by the country as a result of this is, not only this is one of the leading factors, is high population growth, or the density of population is very high. So any government, it is very difficult for giving employment opportunity to the unemployed youth, especially because in a increasing population. The second one is called stagflation. I already mentioned stagflation means there is no growth, at the same time there is a mild inflation. So that is what is happening, the stagflation, leading to unemployment is the third most important problem faced by the country. And the low investment, why this has happened? Low investment, the foreign direct investment is not coming to India now as a result of this world economic recession, as well as the instability of the US dollar, the trade war between India and China, etc., etc. And the corruption is another problem faced by the country. The corruption, the political corruption, and the corruption at the executive level. Everywhere you can see the corruption, that's one of the most. Then illiteracy is another problem faced by the country. Superstition is another country. Then pollution is another problem faced by the country. Women's safety is the most important concern of the country. And the basic sanitation also is a very poor in our country, and poverty, leading to poverty. So these are all the problems faced by the country. And unless and otherwise we find solutions to these problems, then the country's future would be very dangerous situation, will lead to a dangerous situation. So what the government, according to eminent economists, in a situation like this, the government, public should spend publicly. Public spending should be included, construction of roads, construction of canals, construction of dams, etc., etc. Government should pump in money into the market so that it will generate effective demand among the laborers. So they will go to the market, they will consume more and more products, leading to a vibration, or so the economy will be vibrated. And so now another problem is faced by the country's MSME sector is now considered as the backbone of India's economy, next to agriculture. In some 25 years back, Indian agriculture was considered to be the backbone of India's economy. Now that position has been taken by MSME, small and medium enterprises, which has given, MSME agriculture is also a very important area there, where it employs 40% of the total population is depending on in MSME industry alone, and it produces around 6,000 various products, including exports to various countries. So as all these sectors are now facing, not only the large scale business and industries, as well as the MSME, small and medium industries are also facing growth problem, market problem. All these are problems. So as a result of this recession, the country is going again and again. Sometimes it may lead to a great recession, sometimes leading to depression. So the economists, the planners, etc. has to take effective measures for employment opportunities are to be created, more and more jobs are created, more and more public spendings are generated. As a result, then the illiteracy and literacy and etc. are to be addressed, and this is what the government can do. With this, I am closing this topic. Thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing.